Hello, can everyone hear me? Oh, you can hear me. Good. Hello, Neil. Okay, wonderful. Looks like everyone can hear. And so we'll begin by allowing yourself to come to a place of quiet and peace, allowing yourself to come to a space of deep understanding, of deep awareness. This space is the place where you remember that you are loved, where you remember that the whole of your essence is meant to give and receive love. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So let us begin by first taking a look at where we left off last time. In lecture 1, we learned the psychological stages of change and why they're important. Remember, the psychological stages of change are extremely important because if we're trying to help someone, it really requires the individual be in a space of awareness or about their problem and in a place where they're willing to do the hard work to reach healing. We also talked about Kriya Yoga, and if you can in your chat screen just remind us all, what is Kriya Yoga? Just in, the 3 basic words. What is Kriya Yoga? Do you remember that? Remember, Kriya Yoga is really the beginning of this second book of the sutras, Patanjali Sutras. That's right. And everyone's really familiar with the first or the second sutra of book 1, which tells us all what yoga is. Yoga is a cessation of the turnings of the mind. But not too many people can really freely recite other sutras in the following books or padas. So I really just want you to be able to have that firm understanding of Kriya Yoga because we're using it as our backdrop for yoga therapy. And so Tracy Ann says it is austerity, self-reflection, and surrender. Exactly. So tapa, svadhyaya, and ishvara pranidhana. And then Maricela goes on to say, it detoxes the body, nurtures the senses, and purifies the mind. That's also exactly right. In the short sense, if we want to define Kriya Yoga, we would say, well, it's tapas, svadhyaya, ishvara, pranidhana, and it aids yoga therapy because it detoxes the body, nurtures the senses, and purifies the mind. So both answers are both in their own right, but put together, it becomes really complete for our purposes moving forward. So you'll want to kind of hold that in the back of your head as we move forward. And I really believe hold it in the back of your mind as we move forward as yoga therapists, as we move forward as Ayurvedic practitioners. Now, we also talked about how nadis are cleansed. Nadis are cleansed in what way? Do you remember this? Remember, there are 3 different nadis. Well, there's 72,000, it said, but breathing exercise is very good. Neti, So try and remember to yourself what those, remember the first and foremost way to cleanse the nadis is how? By cultivating a sattvic mind. So how are all the ways that we can cultivate a sattvic mind? Well, pranayama, yoga, being in a space of non-judgment, all the ways, you know, it's basically the 8 limbs of yoga. That's how we cultivate a sattvic mind. Of course, we cultivate a sattvic mind as well by our dinacharya, correct? When we fill the senses, fill the body with pure things or things that are balancing to our prakriti, that are balancing to our original proclivity, then yes, we are balancing the nadis and cleansing the nadis. So the first way we balance the nadis is by cultivating the sattvic mind. And how do we cultivate a sattvic mind? All of the, I mean, there's a myriad of ways of doing it, correct? And remember, then the second way of cleansing or balancing the nadis is through the shat karmas, the 6 actions, or the shat kriryas, it's sometimes called. And these are defined in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, kind of the go-to encyclopedia for all of Hatha Yoga. If you haven't read it yet, it's pretty dry reading, but it's a really good encyclopedia kind of book that you can go to frequently. Purchase one for yourself if you don't have it. It should be part of your library as an Ayurvedic practitioner, and certainly as a yoga therapist. But long story short, so the shat karmas are what? They're neti nali, kapha balati, trataka, Dauti and Basti. So I kind of give myself a little rhyme, you know, it's Neti, Nali, Kapha, Balati, gazing, gauzing, and Basti. Okay? So these are things as a yoga therapist and an Ayurvedic wellness practitioner that really should come off of the tip of your tongue. Because it isn't just how you eat, it isn't just how you know, there isn't just one aspect of being an Ayurvedic wellness practitioner. Yoga is a deep part of it. Yoga therapy isn't just something out in the distance, right? That, oh, if you go to yoga class, you use it. No, this is part of what an Ayurvedic wellness practitioner needs to be very familiar with in order to help their clients move through. And that's why I think it's an important backdrop to use Kriya Yoga. So does that make sense in general? Even if you hadn't gone through lecture 1 with me, if you hadn't heard the lecture at all, you should be able to start with this basics understanding moving forward in the practice of yoga therapy, and to make your Ayurveda practice complete, whole. Okay? So before we move forward, also, I only had 1 response to the posting about Kriryas and yoga therapy, and that was from Jennifer. And she basically was able to do exactly what we've done here in the last 5-10 minutes, to meld together what Kriya Yoga is with yoga therapy and Ayurveda. You know, intertwine all of them together, not only just on paper, not be able just to memorize them, but in your own sense, be able to understand and grasp and feel how to integrate all of them together as one whole practice. I mentioned last time I've been practicing the Vedic sciences since 1977, since I was 17 years old. And it wasn't until I started practicing Ayurveda in 2007, and then later Jyotish in about 2012, that I truly, fully understood that you really can't pick apart the Vedic sciences. And yes, you can use them here, there, everywhere. But when you have a complete understanding of all of them put together, my goodness, the power, the beauty that comes alive within your own spirit, and that powerful spirit and beauty that comes alive, that gets kindled, is what aids you in helping others heal. This is what aids you in understanding other people's suffering, pain, and helps you move them through that suffering and pain. And really, when I started Ayurveda in about 2007, I first started and learned from the late Dr. David Simon. And what I learned really from him, mostly, he's a colleague that together with Deepak Chopra started the Deepak Chopra Center. They were colleagues in medical school, apparently, and were part of the Transcendental Meditation movement in Iowa and did a lot of different studies as medical doctors in the TM movement. Long story short, sure, I learned a lot of things from both Dr. Simon and Dr. Chopra, but what I mostly learned was that allopathic medicine and holistic medicine really has the same success rate. What matters in whether someone gets relief or support or gets healed, so to speak, is the care they get from their caregiver. It's how keyed in, how willing, how in the game, so to speak, the caregiver is. So as a yoga therapist, we have to understand that we're caregivers. As an Ayurvedic wellness practitioner, we have to understand that we are helping those people that need help heal, not only in the physical plane, but in the mind plane as well, in the spirit plane as well. And that's why the psychological stages of change are important as we move forward. So the name of the book, I'm going to type it out for you here, Tracy Ann, is Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Very dry, but it's great. You can look at it as, like I said, as a bit of a encyclopedia kind of thing that you'll look at for reference. A lot of the information that I'm using in the recorded yoga therapy classes and in these 4 that we'll be holding together are straight out of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, are straight out of the Yoga Sutras. Okay? Yes, I have a lot of experience since I was 17. I'm 55 now, so going on a lot of years, however many years that is. I've taught a lot of classes, helped a lot of people, but the main thing is that we're aware that when we use the systems as a whole, when we open ourselves up to the beauty that's contained in all the systems and integrate them, then we can use them as a whole, and that's when their power is the grandest and I think the greatest. So remember that as yoga therapists, we are caregivers. Remember that as a caregiver, love heals. This is why self-love is so important in yoga therapy. This is why your and my spiritual practice, your and my willingness to do the tapas, the internal work, to surrender. And remember, surrender, as I was talking about it last week, also means that we're willing to be honest with ourselves. Remember, I talked about maturity, being mature enough to say, okay, I had that bottle of wine, or I didn't pay attention to the times I needed to go to sleep, and I went way past the time I should go to sleep, or I woke up in the wrong time of day or whatever. Well, I'm going to have to, fess up to that. We have to be mature enough to see ourselves honestly. But remember, this doesn't mean that we beat ourselves up. We have to find a way to cultivate love within, because it's the love that's the healing part of it. As caregivers, we have to have this space of compassion and empathy. But most importantly, we have to have this well that's just so full of love that we can give it readily, and not give it and then be drained, but give it in a way that the person that we're trying to help can feel the love within us. And so I sometimes think, to be honest, and excuse me for saying it a little bit, is that I sometimes think that it doesn't matter so much which poses you do, or even what you do Ayurvedically. What matters is your intention. What matters is that love, that beauty that you have within yourself as a yoga therapist, as an Ayurvedic wellness practitioner. And then, are you able to use that? Are you able to share it? And so that's really the basis here that I want to move forward with, is, do we have that self-love? Do we have the basic understanding of the Vedic sciences? Can we use them as a whole and not piecemeal? And then can we open ourselves up to the beauty that is cultivated because of that ultimate surrender and self-study of our own? That is what is healing. And that's what will help people the most. I remember when I was going through my training with San Diego College of Ayurveda, and Dr. Bhatia Manjulali would say that her father, moment of silence to feel his energy, because he taught Manjulali, but she remembers being in his presence, and he would sometimes give his clients a glass of water and say, take this, this will make you better. And they would get better. Why would they get better? Because he had within himself the love. He had within himself the depth of knowledge, sure, but he had within himself, I think, I never met him, but I believe and I know he had within himself the ability to look at himself honestly, and the ability to tap into that inner beauty and share it with others. That's what being an Ayurvedic wellness practitioner is, and a yoga therapist is, in my view. And I believe that's how I've been able to help others, is truly by offering love, and then reminding them that they are that same source. They are love too. So moving forward then, let's see. There. So moving forward with the concept of Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is mind, body, and spirit. Or I should have put body, mind, and spirit. Remember, body is really, we talked about last week, the tapas. We have to maybe practice a physical practice, or eat in a specific way, or keep ourselves from not doing certain actions. That's the body part of it. Mind is the svadhyaya, that internal reflection, where we're aware of our behaviors that may be feeding imbalances. And then Kriya Yoga is spirit. It's becoming aware of our need to heal ourselves and others. I believe that to be an effective yoga therapist, Ayurvedic wellness practitioner, that we need to understand and be able to heal ourselves first, understand our own imbalances and be able to heal ourselves. It's tricky stuff. So yoga therapy then, we'll put the term Kriya Yoga aside because sometimes the Sanskrit words or the idea that it's the first verse in the second book of the sutras can be a little daunting. It can scare people off sometimes. So we'll just use kind of the Western idea of it, okay? Which is body, mind, and spirit. So the body aspect of it, we use asanas in yoga therapy. We use pranayama to calm the mind, to focus the mind. And in some sense, we can even say we use the asanas to calm the mind also. I remember teaching classes at the prime time hour, and people would come in so stressed out after work. And sometimes I just had to, it was almost like I had to beat them up physically with the vinyasa practice in order to get them to calm down. They had to be able to focus on something else that was so difficult just in order to calm the mind. So there's going to be this interplay, and those of you that teach or practice, you know this. Again, we can't take one of the pieces of yoga or Ayurveda out piecemeal. They are and should be integrated. But in general, this is how we'll use yoga therapy, asanas, pranayama, and meditation through the aspect or in the process of bringing balance to the body, the mind, and the spirit. Oops, I went backwards, I'm sorry. So let's start with the body part of it, the asanas. So this is in general, and it's also very specific, to be honest. But these will be really easy guidelines to help you moving forward. Spinal twists massage the internal organs. That's kind of readily apparent, isn't it? They loosen up built-up waste in the intestines, encourage the internal organs to purge toxins. They relieve constipation. They help with digestive problems, PMS, and low back pain. They stimulate the liver and kidneys and increase Agni, the digestive fire. Now remember, what was the purpose? So I'm going to kind of go backward again. What was the purpose of yoga therapy? This is another kind of definition that you just have to have under your belt. And it's only a few of them. It's not even, a handful of them. Just a few things that you really have to stick in your mind and head and soul as we move forward. So what was the purpose of yoga therapy? Do you remember? Anyone remember what was the purpose? And I'll answer. Some of you are asking me questions privately, and I welcome that. I promise I'll answer you before we move on. So the purpose of yoga therapy is to balance the vayus. Remember, to balance the Agni, and to balance the nadis. Right? So remember that. Balance the vayus, balance Agni, and Agni has 3 different stages, and there are 13 different Agnis. Those of you in the Ayurvedic side are very aware of this. Those of you that haven't taken the first portion of this may not be as aware, but I promise when we finish, it's all going to make sense. So let's talk about this for a moment. So if you haven't highlighted what the purpose of yoga therapy is, you need to, okay? Balance values, balance Agni, and balance the nadis. And then moving back, remember the definition. So it's kind of interesting. The definition of yoga is to empower individuals with the application of the yogic philosophy. Okay? To empower individuals with the application and practice of the philosophy of yoga. Empower individuals. How do we do that? I think it goes back to the self-love again. It goes back to, can we give love as therapists, as practitioners? Can we receive love? Are we ready to take love as those that are seeking help from a therapist or a practitioner? But remember, it's about empowering the person. And that's why the psychological stages and the psychological part, the manas, the mind, that is so important to the whole process. It's almost like we have to become psychotherapists able to help people move forward. At least we have to have a very basic understanding of the principles of psychology, psychotherapy, in order to move forward. Okay? So let's talk about these twists then. Spinal twists massage the internal organs. They loosen built-up waste in the intestines and encourage the internal organs to purge toxins, relieve constipation, digestive problems, PMS, and low back pain. They stimulate the liver and the kidneys and increase Agni. They increase Agni. So a Pitta with high liver enzymes, would they be wanting to do spinal twists? And I'll answer this for you. Some of you that have taken teacher training with me might laugh, but it's a yes, no, maybe so answer. Now, I'm not saying that to be flip. It's because you have to think about it. It's not just a never give twists to someone with high liver enzymes, right? Never give twists to someone who's high pitta, right? Never give twists to Tikshna Agni. No, 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 no. That's not the way to think. The way to think is, which imbalance do I need to focus on first, and which imbalance is fueling the other imbalances? Does that make sense? Sometimes, for instance, I know I helped someone who had had a fatty liver for most of their adult life. By the time I finished with this client, the fatty liver was gone. Now, if I had looked at this person and thought, well, yeah, they have a fatty liver and they're, trust me, they were a high pitta person, a lot of stress in their life, corporate type, If I hadn't given the spinal twists, I wouldn't have used a very powerful tool, which spinal twists, they massage and they cleanse the internal organs. So I just had to be careful about which spinal twists I used. And if you go back to the recorded tapes I did from last term I taught, there are 3 different twists in there. Actually, I think I put maybe 5 or 6 different twists in there. So a reclining twist would be a really nice, gentle twist done in a kapha period, kapha time of day, right? Would help to bring balance to the liver, cleanse the liver without stimulating Agni without stimulating or taking or bringing that person into a deeper state of imbalance. Does that make sense? So we can use the spinal twist. We just have to be aware of how to use it. For instance, how about a pregnant woman? Should a pregnant woman have spinal twists? That's a trick question. 95% of the time, I'm going to say never give a pregnant woman spinal twists. But that really isn't true. And those of you, a couple of you maybe went through my teacher training, know that there is a spinal twist that you can give that is very beneficial to pregnant women, that doesn't compromise, of course, the growing baby, and doesn't compromise anything else within their progression forward. And what is that? Again, I'm trying to think of the name of it. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank of the name of it. I'm about to mind. But it's just with the right leg drawn up and bent, and the left leg back in a kind of a hero. So it isn't a tight twist, it's a very gentle twist. Of course, pregnant women shouldn't lie on their back, so I would refrain from giving a pregnant woman a spinal twist lying on the back. But this corporate fellow who had the most stressed out job, the fatty liver, this, that, and the other, we needed twists. Now, did I want to give it to him in the middle of the day and have him do Marichasana D, one of the most difficult poses in all of yoga to do? No, of course not. That would just boost their Agni ridiculous and probably bring a lot of toxicity into the system. You see what I'm saying? So it very infrequently is a never answer. It's just being aware of which poses you can choose from and which ailment you need to fix, so to speak, first. And I really needed to get at that sluggish Agni. I needed to get in there with that fatty liver, I had to get in there and gently coax it to heal itself with gentle poses without aggravating his pitta, without aggravating Agni, so that it started doing bad instead of good. Does that make sense? And so it kind of takes me back, and I don't mean back in my own mind. I haven't said this before. It kind of takes me back to the idea that we have to choose poses that are specific to the individual and then can be done very easily. Yoga therapy is most frequently poses that are not more than 1 to 3 poses. Very infrequently will it be more than 5, and almost never will not be vinyasa practice. Yoga therapy will usually start out with 1 to 3 postures, and then they'll change over time as the client starts to get results from the yoga therapy. Okay? So spinal twists are poses that you don't give normally without an adequate warm-up and without really deep attention to the detail. Why? Because spinal twists are the main way that you can cause a herniated disc. If you don't have the proper breathing, if you don't go into a twist on the exhale. Why? Because when you exhale, what happens? You tighten the belly, huh? When you tighten the belly, what do? You support the spine. You support the spine, you can twist. But twists should not be, like I said, the difficult twists. But there are plenty of other twists that are suitable not only for Pitta, but for Kapha and for Vata as well. And a lot of those are in the poses that are, or in the PowerPoints that are pre-recorded, and you can take a look at those. So thank you for that question. I hope that helps. Trying to get my, okay, inversions, like legs up the wall pose, helps to drain accumulated lymph fluid from the legs and recirculate it throughout the body. And this is going to be important. We'll talk about the lymphatic system in a moment. But I believe that legs up the wall pose is the most effective inversion for yoga therapy. And it might even be the most effective asana in all of yoga therapy. Why? Because it can be done with minimal supervision. And then again, if you'll go back to my recordings, I have, I believe, again, 3 to 6 different variations of Dvipada Viparita Karani for Vata, Kapha, and Pitta. Okay? But I simply love legs up the wall pose. And really, if you wanted a go-to pose, if you've never taught yoga therapy before, if you've never practiced yoga before, but you wanted to come out of this class with something that you could use for your Ayurvedic clients, take this, legs up the wall with 3 variations, the 3 variations for Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And you have it, the most powerful pose. Okay. Back bends, they stimulate the abdominal organs. They stretch the muscles of the back so they can help to relieve tension in the back. And then frequently that tension, you know, goes up to tension in the shoulders and the head. And so it's very helpful for headaches. Therapeutically, they're used to relieve constipation, PMS, anxiety, backache, and to stimulate digestion. Most back bends should not be used as yoga therapy unless supervised by a qualified yoga therapist. Now I'm talking about, you know, the back bend, the full back bend. But what back bend could you use without a warm-up, without supervision? Can anyone chime in there? Which back bends might be safe? Those of you that are teachers, this should come to you very quickly and easily. Which back bend would be? Cat-cow? Yeah, cat-cow's a back bend, but mostly, you know, the cow is. Bridge. Bridge was the one I was looking for. Exactly. Thank you, Mati. Supported bridge, certainly, depends on the individual again, but really bridge should be your go-to back bend. And those of you that have practiced with me or that practice, have ever practiced Ashtanga before, you know that there are dozens of bridges. You know, so bridge can be very difficult. I mean, there are variations with one leg in hero posture. There are variations with the leg in lotus. There's one leg pose. There, you know, there's so many. So supported back bend, you know, that's a yes, no, maybe so. I don't know. How strong is the client? How old is the client? What are you trying to balance? You know, a supported bridge may not be good for someone who has a sluggish Agni, right? We may want something more active. But let's just move forward and we'll talk more. Dynamic poses, what do I mean by this? Poses that are moving, of course, or change. Surya Namaskar is one of the best ones. It keeps the body moving, and we're going to see why that's really important. It's important because it moves the lymphatic fluid throughout the body. The lymphatic fluid, my goodness, in and of itself starts the healing process, huh? Surya Namaskara is a complete practice on its own, but it has to be done with complete awareness and really should only be given as yoga therapy if you're really confident that that person can do it without harming themselves. With my experience of teaching over 12,000 yoga classes, I really only can trust about 3 to 5 of those 12,000 people I've taught to do Surya Namaskara on their own. A couple of them are in class tonight. Okay? Just because people don't do Surya Namaskara correctly. You give them Surya Namaskara to do at home, and they're going to hurt themselves and come back to you with a worse problem, huh? But very wonderful. Love it. For the right person, sun salutations are fabulous. Well, Kriya Yoga improves immunity. It cleanses the circulatory, improves digestive, balances the lymph system. Each of the above systems is crucial in the elimination of wastes. In our body focus tonight, reviewing, the mind, the body, mind, and spirit, the circulatory system pumps blood throughout the body, delivering oxygen to and carrying waste products away from cells. The digestive system processes the food we eat, separating nutrients from waste and eliminating anything the body doesn't need. But the lymphatic system, which we want to focus on here for a moment, collects intracellular fluid from the body and transports it to the lymph nodes where contaminants are removed before the lymphatic fluid is returned to the blood. Now, remember, the lymphatic system doesn't have a pump like the circulatory system, the heart. So what's it going to use? The lymph and cleansing. The process begins with the lymph system collecting, and we'll review it a little bit again, draining the cellular fluid. Finally, we can look at how the veins send blood through the liver to be filtered, and the waste is passed through the body as urine or feces. And the digestive system absorbs the larger nutrients, electrolytes, and water through the colon and eliminates the rest through your bowels as feces. So the lymphatic system works with all three, doesn't it? Works with the circulatory system primarily in moving protein white blood cells to the tissues. Main transport is the lymphatic fluid, but as I said earlier, it doesn't have a pump. It relies on the movement of the body to operate efficiently. And this is why it's so important to be able to give asana practice as part of your yoga therapy. It isn't the only part of yoga therapy now, is it? And please don't get myopic in thinking that yoga therapy is giving yoga asana to people. That's no. But yes, we have to know that in order to bring cleansing, and cleansing is the first process, isn't it, when we start to help people? We do a panchakarma process. Well, we have to be aware that the yoga therapy, the asana practice, can be a part of your panchakarma process, part of your cleansing process for your clients. So why are yoga asanas an important part of cleansing? Yoga facilitates cleansing by supporting and enhancing the removal of waste, and I'm saying it again, such as carbon dioxide during pranayama, lactic acid, and lymphatic fluid from the deep tissues and extremities of the body. Okay? Yoga asanas, however, must be specific to the client. They must be specific to the imbalance. So I can't just broadly, like we talked about earlier, say, oh, someone who's a pitta and has, high liver enzymes should never have a twist. No, no, no. Well, high liver enzymes, yeah, but we still need to massage, believe in the fact that asanas are healing in and of their own right. And when given the right yoga asana, they just have a beautiful effect on helping people balance. Sometimes I even think that giving the wrong one is okay too. Remember, we talked about at the beginning of the class, if your intention is right, as long as it isn't harmful to someone. But if your intention is right, I don't think we can go too wrong, because there's a beauty that comes through the asanas that's going to heal. Sometimes I'm not going to mention which yogi, but a very high esteemed yogi and Ayurvedic practitioner, maybe one of the most revered in all of yoga and Ayurveda, gave a protocol, yoga therapy protocol. And when I saw the protocol, I didn't agree with it at all. And I could very easily kind of knock it down and say why it wouldn't work. But I would never do that. Why? Because this highly spiritual, highly self-practicing yogi and Ayurvedic practitioner had so much internal spirit, internal love, and willingness to share that with others, that it was like giving someone, a glass of water and they were going to heal. Okay? So don't get too specific on yourself. This isn't, memorization. This isn't about how do I memorize what I'm going to teach. It's about feeling the spirit within yourself, cultivating self-love within yourself and sharing it with others, trusting in the Vedas, trusting in the Vedic sciences to do the work for you. Okay? Oops. An important part of the lymphatic system is its connection to the breathing process. We talked about asanas. Let's talk about the breathing process. Well, pranayama helps clear out carbon dioxide from the lung tissue, stimulates the organs of digestion and the pressure changes in the chest, and it causes lymphatic fluid to be pumped in and out of the bloodstream. So that's kind of your pump, the breathing process. Maybe you have someone that just had surgery. Are you going to give them an asana practice? Depends on what surgery, but probably not. But you most definitely can give them, a breathing practice, pranayama. Yoga asanas, in addition to the physical benefits, aid in mental detox. We learn to retrain our mind from toxic thoughts and attitudes and use positivity instead. Remember, we started last class with this idea, Krishnamacharya's. It's also one of the sutras in the second book, 33rd Sutra of the second book. That is, Vitarka Bharani Praripaksha Bhavanam. When negative thoughts arise, contemplate the opposite. And when you fail, what do? You use tapas. So do you see how it starts to be this circle, this very supportive mandala, if you will, this very supportive chakra, this very supportive, beautiful process? But you have to delve into it as a whole. Delve into it like you would into a deep, beautiful, clear lake. I don't want you to just take a thimbleful of the water. I want you to dive in. When we're able to do this, when we're able to witness our own thoughts, and say, hey, that was negative. It's kind of, remember the Mahatma Gandhi, mind your thoughts, because your thoughts become your words become your actions, and your actions determine who you are. When you're able to look at yourself, when you're able to witness, when you become aware, this is what? This is the foundation of meditation. And this is where you start to make change. Awareness. And if it's difficult, well, you stop us. You remind yourself of the simplicity of life. You remind yourself of the importance of discernment. You remind yourself to stay away from extremes. Excuse me. So again, just for a moment, to remind yourself that self-love is to know that you are completely loved, but most importantly, completely lovable. All of us need to believe this. Tell yourself out loud if you want, but please tell yourself now that you're completely lovable. And in this moment, you too are completely loved. Feel my love coming to you. Remember too that you attract in your life what you are. You attract the qualities of who you are. Attract love. Remember that love heals. That's the power that you have within yourself. That's more than any book says. That's more than all the didactics of the practice of yoga. Love. Love heals. Love renews. Love makes us safe. Love inspires us. Love removes doubt. When you sense doubt in yourself, just tell yourself, I am loved. I am worthy of love. Love removes fears. I know and I believe in my heart of hearts that love unveils immortality. Love brings peace. It harmonizes. It brings us closer to what we believe is God. So just for now, love yourself as you are. Be grateful that you are just as you are today. But know that you have the capacity to change. Know that you have the capacity to be loved. Look at your positive and negative qualities just for a moment with me now. And say to yourself, I love myself just as I am. Remember too that love's not the opposite of hate. Love doesn't have opposites. It's whole. It's pure. Negativity sometimes rises because love has been excluded. Negativity, doubt arises when we refuse to see ourselves as we truly are. Pure love. All obstacles are created by our belief in non-love. But it's okay, because you can always train yourself to believe that you are love. And once again, for now, know that you are love. But know also that to have this fully integrated into your life, in this moment, you must practice being love at every moment. Catch yourself, if you will, in your car, in the grocery store. Catch yourself at first in the morning when you wake up, and at night. Just tell yourself, I am the energy of love. The more you do it, the more you do it, the more you do it, the more you will be that. So as we come to an end of this session, breathe in deeply with me one time. And exhale. And tell yourself in this moment, I am lovable. Tell yourself, in this moment, I can love. Tell yourself, in this moment, I am love. Thank you so much for being a part of this evening. And I'll see you next time. Namaste.